again, viewers. Welcome back to the channel on the early morning hours here, just after 5 a.m. We're at Block Island. That's an island off of Rhode Island. It's Kilo Bravo, India, Delta. And we are heading to Laguardia Airport, just outside New York City. That's Kilo Lima Golf Alpha. And I stated in my previous HJET video in the description at the very end that I wanted to review this aircraft again and kind of do a second upload for some more content, because I've discovered there are more features that I wanted to explore in the first video but did not have the means to do so. And now that I do, I basically would like to re-upload a second rehash of this. So I picked a longer flight, meaning this video is probably intentionally going to be longer with less supercut editing. And I'll go ahead and right in the beginning, as we're getting the initial pre-flights done, I'll try to examine the newer features right off of the bat. So just in case, if you don't want to stick around for the full video, no big deal. But in any event, I'm going to redo this content as it were right now. So let's go ahead and just hop on board. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the ground power external power unit on there to keep our battery from draining here while we go ahead and pre-flight this aircraft. We're gonna say the exterior walk around is satisfactory and all taken care of course, but some of the features I wanted to show on this, which I hadn't gotten an opportunity previously, was the integration of the working title G3000 avionics suite here, and the ability to run flight charts and plates that you can activate through your subscription to Navigraph if you have the ultimate plan, which I had just got. And that basically was, I believe at the time of this video, in euros 8.30, and that roughly equates to almost $9 US denomination. So that's a monthly fee, and what it brings to this aircraft in terms of G3000 functionality is no short or no less than, I would say, almost a requirement to get this level of avionics functioning the way that you would want it to function in the simulator. And basically, I'm going to display that here while we're setting up everything in the flight plan and all. So let's go ahead and also bring up at this time another mentioning about this aircraft that I wanted to point out in this secondary video. So you can see we have full fuel here, and we're flying as pilot in command by ourselves today. So we might as well go ahead and close the main door. We'll go back to the main page here, and then let me find here for you, let's see, the aircraft systems #1, we'll do that, and then we'll go ahead and just show basically the let's go back one page here. We'll go to system controls, exterior lights, and I want to make sure this system here is very automated, and these lights will function on their own if you leave them in normal. So the jet seems to have an acknowledgement of what's going on with the aircraft, so it knows when to switch this on, when to switch that on, when to switch this off, so on and so forth, which is a really nice automated feature. That aside, I also wanted to point out that the status page has been checked off, and even though it is green, it basically has been initialized already. I went through the systems test, which, if you haven't seen, is the pre-flight automated response the aircraft does, where it checks the fire detection, the stall protection here with the flight yokes and the shaker stick, and then the switch illumination. So done, and done. Fantastic. Then we're going to go to weight and fuel here, and basically I'm just going to get all the information from the sim, pre-program that in, and then we'll go to takeoff and we'll get that from the sim. I'll go ahead and click next, and then we'll get from sim, and then I'm going to turn everything on for takeoff and landing. And then with that in mind, you can see that's how that works. Now, one of the other features I wanted to show was this checklist that you can run through. So before, I wasn't aware of how to actually switch through these and check them off as done. So let's go ahead and we'll turn this yoke off momentarily here, and then I'm going to turn the battery on because that is our first before starting engines check here, and we are on ground power, so we're not theoretically draining anything from the system. But you're going to go ahead, if you have this craft and you have not figured this out already, you're going to click on this left button with the left mouse, and then you're going to also click it with the right mouse while you have the left button depressed. So you can go through these, and that was the feature that I was trying to figure out before and was not able to essentially figure out. So I'm just running through these and checking these off manually, and we'll go ahead and we'll also verify all of this. I'll stop right there, and we can see pressurization over here, of course, normal, oxygen mask audio normal, supply normal, batteries are on, generator switches are in normal, both left and right, ELT in normal, nose wheel steering normal, flaps condition lever up, retracted, thrust levers cut off. Yes, that's true. Speed brake, if installed, we do have it. Speed brake center of the screen there. Listed as retracted, so that's good. Ice protection normal and off. So we've got our pneumatics and our ice protections down here normal, and everything is in the proper positions for that. Okay, so now you can see if you were going through this one page at a time, you could kind of just go and, you know, tick, 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 trim. We'll go ahead with the trim, we'll check that off, but then we're going to come over here and actually center of the screen, we're going to pitch down to about 4 degrees there, 4.0 on the pitch trim indicator. That will put us, once the flaps are down, pretty much where we need to be within takeoff range. As long as it's green, you know that you're in range. Once, of course, the aircraft is set up and our flaps are down. And if not, we'll just change that accordingly. Windshield heat was in normal, pneumatic panel normal, glare shield, chimes, avionics initialization, and then of course next checklist, right? So it brings you right down to starting engines. Passengers brief, that's just us today because we're not rolling with passengers. Rudder pedals, excuse me, adjusted seat belts and seats adjusted and secure, correct. Doors closed, already did that. Parking brake is set, emergency, right there. Okay, good, set. And then let's go ahead and we'll also, we can check our volts minimum here. So one of the things I can do is go back to check the volts on the main page if you wanted to with the electrics, but it basically, we have more than enough volts. It's above 23.5, and you can see that on the page. So let's go ahead and go back, and then we'll look at the aircraft systems, and then we'll go to electrical, and then you can see 25.4 volts, batteries 1 and 2, plus we're being provided 28 volts on the external power, which means that we have more power coming in than we have being used, so aka charging. Okay, so we'll go back to the checklist again, and then we'll verify that. Engine start. Okay, so we're going to stop right there because I'm not actually going to start the engines yet, and bring up the next point in this video so that as to not keep you here all day if you don't want to watch the entire flight, of course. What I wanted to tell you about the Navigraph is that if you do have the Ultimate subscription, you can come down in here and you can type in your origins. So we're at Kilo Bravo India Delta, and we're going to say that we're going to Kilo Lima Golf Alpha. And then what I want to show you is that we're going to be flying over, as you can see on the center screen here, we're basically in the northeast sector, of course, and we're headed from Rhode Island to just outside New York City's LaGuardia Airport. So we're going to be flying over the Atlantic today. I'm going to go ahead and take off and then head south. But to approach, you can basically say, how are you going to fly the procedures? Well, you could fly a star route directly in, which is available. But I'm going to say let's do approach. I'm going to fly the ILS-4 approach to the Golf Romeo Echo Golf transition. And if you want, you can preview it. So let's show it on map, and then that'll preview it there. What's nice about this is basically you can show the chart. Now this is where your Navigraph comes in. If you have the Ultimate subscription, as I mentioned, these are charts which are basically pulled up directly from Navigraph when you link this Garmin G3000 in-game to your Navigraph subscription on the website. And that's not www, it's just //navigraph.com. And there's a whole slew of information here. You can get approaches, you can get taxiways, you can get arrivals, and anything you can think of that's available for navigational aid on Navigraph, you can institute into the screens in here, and you can basically preview them while you're in the air, while you're on the ground, or any other sort of matter. So that's a very interesting thing that I feel you can do with this aircraft. It's also available on the BAE 146, but that's kind of on the plate that's located right next to the left window for that aircraft. However, here it's kind of unique because it's actually built in to the G3000, which really brings this craft and this avionics suite to life. I mean, this is the whole ensemble of functionality, in my opinion, and I really like that. So we loaded that approach, and we're not going to actually activate it yet, but we'll go ahead and we'll go back, and that's pretty much a lot of the gist of what I wanted to remake this video for, so that you could see the Navigraph subscription directly on the screen there. And like I said, you can do that pretty much anywheres. The aircraft has vnav, so that's a nice feature we're going to try and implement today. So if you basically, let's see if I can do this real time here. We've got Laguardia, and I tried to plug in the feet there for field elevation, and I'm not actually able to do it. So we're going to kind of just skip that for now, because I wish that I could put in field elevation, but that's not really a big to do. So if you're looking at the chart here for ILS localizer runway 4, you can basically see towards the bottom Benji, Pachu, Rahel, Dennis, Warren, and then runway 4 LaGuardia. So I'm going to go ahead and take the time to use my cell phone to capture that data in a picture, and then I'm going to come back down to our flight plan in the aircraft, and then I'm going to basically enter that into our routes here. So we have the procedure, and then even though I loaded it into the approach, I did not activate it. So we're going to just leave that off for now. And then we're basically just going to say activate once we're in the air. And when that's basically transitioning to that final approach, what we'll do is I'll go ahead and make sure that when I'm a certain distance away, I'll be at or near 3,000 feet so that the aircraft can pick up the glide slope, and we will land ILS approach, glide slope to 4, following those waypoints. So that's pretty much how the flight's going to go, and I kind of just wanted to show you that because I really thought that that was a neat feature that this aircraft avionics suite has basically implemented. So anyhow, let's go ahead and let me hop back into the left seat here. All right, now that I've swapped over the positions a little bit on the screens, and I've halved the center screen so that you can see the chart plus the approach to LaGuardia ILS 4, I'm going to go ahead and take that photo screenshot I did, and we're going to say I want to arrive at G. Greg at 5,500 feet. I'm going to say Zarid at 5,000. Then I'm going to say Vader at 4,500. Scroll down a little bit. Let's go to JC 4,000. Nicole 3,500. Scroll down, not up, down rather. And I'll stay at 3,000 right here so that we can be at level before the ILS approach. So now we're at where I showed you on the chart. Bang, that's 3,000. Pachu 2,200. Rahel 1,800. And then Dennis, that's going to be 1,700. We're going to throw in a runway field elevation of 20 feet. And then we have our approach programmed in there with hopefully the vnav activated. So we'll try that as it were. And you can see how the Navigraph data programmed into the center screen can definitely help you with your approach plates. You can also see on the bottom we've got a magenta line that has us going up towards our altitude of 5,500 feet for Greg, but it's going to stop at 5,500 feet. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in a manual altitude here of a little bit above that because we don't want to waste too much fuel at the cost of Jet A these days. So let's say we're going to fly at around 15,000. Of course, we're going to be VFR and we're going to stay below any low-level airway space. So let's just say 15,000. Okay, so I'm going to call air traffic control, get some barometric pressure information.
Kilo Bravo India Delta, automated weather observation 0900 Zulu. Wind 054 at 8. Visibility 9er. Sky condition, few clouds at 9,800 feet, few clouds at 13,700 feet. Temperature 15C, dew point 13C, altimeter 29902.
29902. Okay, so we are on that as to verify. On our primary instrument display, our standby is at 29.92, and so is our co-pilot display there. So with that there, how about we go ahead and start up these engines? So let's do that. I'm going to start the right-hand engine first. Basically, with this automated jet, all you have to do is basically reach down, monitor the engine parameters while you're starting, and hit the right-hand start button first. So we've got right-hand rotation, checking for all the usual parameters. Hung starts, hot starts, anything of that nature. Bring it out of flight idle. Interstage turbine temperature rise in Celsius, 200, almost on climbing. Just like that, we got the right-hand engine alive. So we're going to start the left hand by clicking left. And engine rotation. Oil pressure and oil temperature, monitoring that. We've got rise. Let's introduce fuel. Oil PSI in the green and steadily rising. No hung start. No hot start. We are at idle. So I'm going to go ahead and say instruments check, engine anti-ice. It's not hot, cold enough to need any ice, so we're good with that. External power disconnect. Let's go ahead outside and verify gone. And our external power unit is gone. Flight controls free and correct. Let's go ahead and give those a shake. Let me turn the park and brake off. Check the brakes. Check the rudders, left and right. Left, right, full back, full forward. Let's check it externally as well. So I'll come around the back of the aircraft. Full left rudder, full right rudder. Left deflection, left aileron up, right aileron down. And full right deflection, right aileron up, left aileron down. Elevator full up, full down. Okay, so that's about as thorough as I can make that portion. So flight controls are free and correct. So we'll check that off and we'll go to the next checklist. Wing anti-ice not required before taxi. Transponder code. Let's turn our transponder on. We're squawking 200 today. Altimeter reporting. And verified. Flight ID. We're not flying with a flight ID or flight plan today. We're just VFR. Navigational source. Let's go ahead and change that to FMS. That way it wants us to go to LaGuardia. Altimeters are set. Flaps set for takeoff. Takeoff approach position. Okay, and as you can verify, pitch is still 4.0 and now it is in the green. Within range, speed brake, let's check it. Center screen right above the flaps. Extended. But is it? Yep. Right on the tail cone there. And retracted and indicating retracted. Okay, so let's go ahead and verify that. Cabin signs, just us. Parking brake, we'll release that when we're ready. Okay, so we're going to check our brakes, our nose wheel steering, and our flight instruments. So let me get taxi clearance to take off, and we'll go ahead and test that.
Kilo Bravo, India Delta traffic November, 420 Hotel Echo is taxiing to runway 10.
Okay, so we're taking off runway 10 today. I'm going to go ahead and align my heading bug for runway course here. Okay, 100-degree heading. Just in case we decide to fly heading mode, we won't have to worry about it, and we can just depart at runway heading until we clear up the systems. God forbid we have any faults or problems like that, cautions, what have you. Okay, so we've announced our taxi. Everything's good. We're disconnected. Let's go ahead and power up a little bit here and test our brakes and steering. We'll steer clear of that gentleman there. So we know that the right-hand steering works, and we know that the left steering works. Let's try left brake, right brake. Okay, and we know we have both brakes. Okay, so we're just going to keep an eye out for this guy. Not really sure what he's doing. Okay, I hope he's going around the aircraft. That's quite odd. Runaway incursion with the ground maintenance crew or whoever he was. I would assume that he went around the aircraft. Let's just check where he's at. And he did. Good deal. Alright, so we know that our flaps are set for takeoff, but we're going to go ahead and run this checklist for the before takeoff. Trims are set, speed brake is retracted, crew alerting system, no messages of concern, navigation set, flight guidance set, told data confirmed, takeoff briefing complete. Radar as required. We're not going to put the radar on when we are on the tarmac because we absolutely do not want to irradiate people. So there we are. We're almost right at the end of runway 10, so I'm going to just show you that externally, and then we'll just backtrack on the active. Of course, I already announced my taxi, so let's just clear left the windows for any visible traffic, and then we saw right externally, so we're not going to have to worry about anybody on final approach or departing. So we'll go to the after takeoff checklist. And while I'm reviewing that and you're having a chance to take a look at it, just want to say thank you for joining the channel today in this hopefully educational somewhat video. Not a full review, but it is a second revisit of the aircraft itself. And we are basically just doing more detailed things. Like I said, it's going to be a 100+ mile flight today, so it's not going to be a quick one, but that's all right because this is more detailed, and I kind of wanted to just jot out the newer information to you viewers out there that I had just discovered. So with that, if you know you're not interested in the longer flights and whatnot, feel free to head on out and go about and enjoy your day. Either way, thank you for being here, whether you stick around or just view the new news that I had on the craft. So either way, thank you. Feel free to throw a like or subscribe, anything that you feel appropriate. So let's go ahead and we announce our taxi. How about we tell them that we're actually going to take off straight out at the moment.
Kilo Bravo, India Delta traffic November, 420 Hotel Echo, taking off runway 10 straight out departure.
All right, let's run the engines up, full throttle. And Takeoff thrust achieved. We'll keep the engine RPMs a little lower today to save on engine. And it should take just about the whole strip, but that's okay. We're off. This is a rather small airport for this size private jet. Although this isn't a large jet, this also is not a large airport. So we made it. I'm going to pull back to maximum continuous thrust. Gear up above 130. Flaps up. And we're on our way to 15,000. I'll trim the aircraft out. And quite a brilliant sunrise there. So let's go ahead and run our after takeoff checklist. Landing gear, yaw damper is active on primary screen in green. Flaps up. Thrust levers, maximum continuous thrust. Flight guidance as required. Ice protection. Cabin signs, good to go. Pressurization checked. We are in normal. Altimeter is set standard, but we are at 29.92, which is standard anyway. Normal cruise. Altimeters and systems monitoring. Okay. Descent. So we're going to stay on the descent page there. While we're climbing out at 2,900 feet a minute, indicated. We're going to try to stay below 250 knots because we do not want to have to deal with any issues with that. So there we go. And as you can see, compass rose says we're heading due east. And now that we've pretty much got the situations under control here, and we have a positive rated climb, and we have no warning messages on the crew alerting system there, I'm going to go ahead and change my heading there to basically due south so that we can start heading towards LaGuardia. 180 degrees, and I will select heading, and then let's say we pull the power back just a little bit here. Now I'm not in autopilot mode yet, so it's not tracking the heading, kind of just in a standby. And then I'll level out here. We'll get our climb rate to about 0 so that we're not climbing or descending. And then I'm going to throw on the autopilot. And we are in heading mode, maintaining 7,500 feet or so. Let's come over to the altimeter, select that, 7,500 feet. We're getting a little over 250, so we're going to want to slow that back below 10,000. All right, so let's heading bug again. Of course, we're going to be flying off to the east side of Long Island today. That'll be right out of our right-hand window. Grab some views on that while we're at it. And then I called up 7,500. So let's go ahead and bring that back up to 15,000. I'll do flight level change. Oops, sorry about that. We'll do 15,000. Flight level change at a speed of 250. So we'll bring it into maximum continuous thrust, or close to. There we go. MCT D10. Now, because the only waypoints we have are basically the final approach plate, we're just going to say we'll fly the heading bug all the way to just south of our heading there, or our actual first waypoint intersection, and then before we get there, we'll make sure that we're at our altitude for our first waypoint intersection, and then we'll of course throw on nav, and we'll let the aircraft fly itself into the runway threshold there. Of course, we'll pull that off right at the very end just to experience the landing ourselves, but beyond that, we are well on our way. Okay, another thing that's nice about having the Navigraph selected on here is you can check out the top left there on this approach plate, and it's basically telling us the localizer frequency of 110.5 and then final approach course 044 degrees. So that'll set us up for ILS. What's nice about that is, like I said, you can just pull these up mid-flight. You don't have to alt-tab out of the sim. You don't have to pull it up on the phone. You can just see it all right here. Truly, truly neat information. So we'll go ahead and we'll type in on our nav radio 110.5 and 44 degrees. So, to do that, we'll head back, and then we're going to type into our nav radio, which is already, ironically, on 110.5, but we're going to switch our course select to 044 degrees. Let's see if I can change this over here. Course to 044 degrees. And we'll pull the power back while we're doing that because we're at 15,000. Okay, and then we're going to head back to FMS guidance. Let's go ahead while we're at it and call up another heading bug turn here. We'll basically fly the heading towards our navigational intersection there, but we're way left of it, which is intentional. Because, like I said, we're going to fly past that first intersection on the approach plate, and then we're going to make a U-turn and come on back, and then we'll be at hopefully 5,500 feet by the time we reach that. Of course, that's all just rehashed information I've already mentioned, but just trying to keep it relevant in my own mind, of course, for, you know, the functionality of this video and whatnot. Like I said, this will clearly be a longer video with the HJET, but I feel that it kind of showcases just exactly how neat this is when you are able to pair the data there from Navigraph. So let's see what we're saying there. I did not see what that was saying, but that's okay. So that was, let's see, excellent. Wing anti-ice on. So it's giving us caution messages, and this is cool that we're actually flying at cloud level because this aircraft seems to be applying anti-ice itself. So yes, we're getting the yellow caution, which isn't a Mander Dyer like instantaneous emergency to deal with, but it is bringing it to our attention. And you can see down in the lower right, the CAS, or crew alerting system, gives us the messages that it is making the proper changes. So very nice to see that. We know that it can handle it by itself because ice protection, of course, is in the normal position. So is the windshield heats. Engine anti-ice is off. We'll go ahead and turn that on, as it noticed that there seemed to be a little bit of icing condition on the tail and the wing, from what I think I gathered from those CAS messages. So we'll go ahead and burn a little bit of anti-ice on the engine just to possibly melt anything that may be in the left-hand and right-hand engine inlets there. Not going to leave them on, though. Do not want to suck out any extra power from the aircraft. But with that in mind, we'll go ahead, since we have 79 miles to go. I'm going to call up an altitude on the altimeter to see if we can get to about 17,500 feet and hopefully get above this cloud layer. So, of course, flight level change. 250 knots will bring the power back up to maximum continuous thrust. And the synthetic vision down there, you can see on the left-hand panel, that is Long Island. So we're briefly making our way to our destination at LaGuardia. Of course, this navigational chart approach plate here is not the only feature this has. There's also other charts here, infos, of course, Class B airspace. Let's see, under construction, temporary. Class B airspace, New York. So you can see there, Newark, LaGuardia, and Kennedy. So it kind of just gives you an idea of a little bit of the information. If it looks blurry to you, it may be the upload quality, but basically I've recorded this video in 4K, so if you're viewing it in that, fantastic. But if not, just as a heads up, if you do play this game in 1440 or 1080 or whatever suits your fancy, these are legible. So if it looks blurry to you, just be aware that these are more than sufficient in terms of readable clarity. They also give you the taxiways, construction project, very interesting, airport information. There you go. If you're using your air traffic controller or your ground traffic controller and he's, telling you, because look, we're going to land here, runway 4. If they're telling you, and you're doing a commercial flight simulation, to go to a certain gate, and they tell you you need to travel on Foxtrot, Alpha to Golf to whatever they say, you can follow it with these taxi charts, which is awesome. I mean, there's so much information here that it's truly worth, if you're interested in 100% simulator study level navigational charts. This is the real deal from Navigraph. So again, of course, just reiterating what I've already stated, but I truly enjoy how this is put into the simulation itself, and you don't have to alt-tab out or use a phone or fumble around with any keys. It's all just controllable right from the G3000 working title suite. Look at that, you even got a external picture and overview of what it looks like. Truly neat. This is a truly neat aircraft, and I tell you, the cabin space with that alone is enough for endless amounts of content in this craft based off of just the functionality. So anyways, we'll go ahead and go back and we'll check out our flight plan here. So of course we're saying we're going to be at GGREG in a 5,500 feet. So we'll just let that run. And yeah, that's the whole ball of wax, the whole string of yarn, however, whatever you would say. Truly impressive. Let's go ahead and just hop on over real quick with the magic of vnav. We'll just go ahead and look out the window a little zoomed in at the upper extent here of Long Island. And noticing an airport out there. Very cool. We could probably look that up for sure if we had gone back to the information page here. Let's see if we can find out nearest airports. Airports. So this aircraft tells you at 315 degrees bearing, 10 nautical miles. There's a runway that's 8,988 foot long. Then you have East Hampton, 15.8 nautical miles behind us, 51 or 52 degree heading. So you can kind of just scroll through this, and there's really a whole swath of information here that you can really just get into with this aircraft. So you got NDBs and VORs, charts, utilities, of course radar. We do not have the radar on because I'm not sure how implemented the radars are in most of the aircraft. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please do. But I don't really use that too much. Of course, I believe traffic can be done with TCAS in the correct reporting position, but we're not really worried about it too much today. I mean, we're going back to the map. You can also scroll out with this and scroll in. And there's G. Greg right there. So we're coming back on the power. And let's see here. ILS to runway 4. So let's go ahead and intercept that. We'll go over to nav. 45 nautical miles away. And I'm going to go ahead at this point and basically call up 5,500 feet because that's where we said we wanted to be. Alright, so I'm in vnav mode there. And if you look at the aircraft here, it's basically telling us on the center bottom screen, TOD stands for top of descent. Theoretically, with vnav selected and our altimeter requests what altitude we want to be at what intersection, it's saying we'll hit G Greg at 5,500 feet at the top of descent. So let's see if the aircraft starts heading down by itself. We are approaching that point. If not, I'm just going to still fly the runway 4 ILS approach manually anyways, because the video here in essence is more so about, you know, the lighting and the automated systems that the HJET has here, as well as the navigational charts that I kind of wanted to show you with the functionality. So we'll play this by ear. One way or another, we'll get safely on the ground. So I'll stay zoomed into that basically. And I want to see preview again. So you can see G Greg right-handed Zerid, slightly left hand, excuse me. Then we're going to head to JC left, Nicole left, Viraz left, straight in runway 4. That's pretty much the way this is going to work. And of course, this is Long Island here, so we are out over the water heading towards G Greg. We're probably somewhere about right in here. Okay, and as you can see, the aircraft did pick up the vertical flight path. So we're 34.3 nautical miles and rapidly decreasing that number.
Landing gear.
It's telling me that I'm at flight idle without the gear down, but we want to stay below 250 knots as always, under 10,000 feet. So, landing field elevation, we'll go ahead and check that off. Check engine anti-ice as required. We're going to be pulling through the lower base of the cloud level, do not need it, 29.92. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get Laguardia up on the hook now. There we go, number 7, LaGuardia. Let's get some ATIS.
LaGuardia Airport information, Kilo 0900 Zulu. Wind 053 at 8. Visibility 9er. Sky condition, few clouds at 9,900 feet, few clouds at 13,800 feet. Temperature 15. Dew point 13. Altimeter 29.902. ILS runway 4 in use. Landing and departing runway 4. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have Kilo.
So IFR, we're going to fly the ILS anyways in the 4. We have to initialize the most recent information there. Of course, we have to read back to air traffic control, and then we have to advise them on the information that we have, which is the most recent. So this scrolls around, and you can see it's Kilo. So we'll go ahead and announce a full stop.
November 420 Hotel Echo is tree 9er miles east 13,800 feet with Lima to land.
Of course, it said Kilo, but you're right back Lima. That's great.
Altimeter 29.9er, 2 wind 053 at 8. Enter left traffic runway 4.
Okay, acknowledge traffic pattern
Enter
entry.
left traffic runway 40 Hotel Echo.
So she said enter left traffic pattern to runway 4. You'll notice that G Greg is basically going to side skirt this airport here. So we'll basically head down a left downwind over the city, and that'll bring us to our left traffic pattern. Aircraft changing directions to get on the magenta. And aircraft is now with the vnav flying the vertical path at the designated points and time and space that we said we wanted to be somewhere at the altitude, most importantly. And the only thing I'm managing here is the throttle to make sure that we stay under 250 knots, below 10,000, which we're at 12,200 and losing altitude. Of course, we don't have to mess with our standby or active barometric pressures because we're still at 29.92. Which ideally you would have to change, get above 18,000. You want to go to 29.92 standard, but below that, the barometric pressure needs to be adjusted to where you are locally. Just something to keep in mind. So let's go ahead while we're at it. We got some downtime. I always try to stay ahead of my aircraft so that we don't get behind the loop, proverbially speaking. Seat belts and signs, passenger briefing just does, cabin signs, avionics set, landing data set and confirmed. We should have our approach speeds. I do see it on the left hand, the approach. Checking the crew alerting system, done. Approach briefing, done. Flaps, takeoff, and approach. But we're not obviously at that stage yet. We got quite a while to go here. Landing gear. So landing gear, speed, brakes, flaps, airspeed, V reference. I'm going to not click through all of this, but I'll just leave the page there for a self reminder a little bit later on when we are on final approach. Hopefully you're enjoying this short flight from Block Island to LaGuardia's runway 4. This approach should bring us directly over the city, which should be fantastic view. And like I said, if you're wondering where I got my altimeter numbers from for these intersections, all you have to do with the Navigraph, and even if you don't have the Navigraph, you can still plug these in. You just have to go out and procure the data yourself from a viable website that provides that. And it's even free at that. But here, being able to plug it in, I'm just pulling the numbers directly from the approach plates in the sim. Super convenient. And not only just for a fact of it being convenient is the idea that if you're going to have a G3000 setup, it would really be appropriate to have more high-level functionality, because this is quite, as I mentioned in my other video, in real life, an expensive avionics package. I mean, these go for what I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but upwards of $250,000. So when you're at this level of flight, you kind of expect the best of the best. So quite powerful solutions for navigational data in such a small, compact jet. Anyways, I rest my case. Coming through 7,500 feet. According to our vertical flight path data, we are going to reach GGREG at 5,500 foot as we asked. We have more than plenty of fuel today. Took off with a full tank. Quite excessive for a 100-mile flight, but you know, if we're not paying for the gas bill, what does it matter? Might as well top off. And so New York City is going to start showing up with the buildings just ahead of us there and mostly off to our left. And there's our automated left-hand turn towards Zarid. Trying to keep the speed as close to the higher end of the scale below 10,000 as possible, so that, you know, in the event this video is long as it is already, it doesn't have to be any longer than necessary. If you're still here, I commend you for that. Thank you. My goal is always on this channel is to, if not educate, certainly bring smiles to people's faces, and if I can reach just one person in a video, that's great. As far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier. If this content helps you in any way, or maybe making an informed decision on purchasing this beforehand, or even just helps you with any of your other aircraft, then for me it was worth the effort and the time. So, once again, of course, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate your company, especially if you're still here. So now that we're getting closer to the action here, I'm going to see if I can bring our, there we go, bringing our approach plate in. JFK, just off the nose to the left. That's not where we're headed, but you'll be able to see it right there. Of course, that's one of my favorite airports when I'm flying the Concorde. If you have the Concorde DLC by DC Designs, you just have to fly out of JFK, don't you? You have to. One of its real-life originating and departing places for the Concorde in real life. One can imagine, I guess, with all this traffic, if you were flying these approaches in real life, why you would have to be extremely experienced, in my opinion, to fly out of the Northeast sector. Because you've got Newark, JFK, you've got LaGuardia, you've got Teterboro, I mean, this area is not the area you want to be flying if you're not familiar with how to speak to air traffic control in a timely, very quick manner, because they are busy, busy, busy. There's Lower Manhattan just off the nose. Of course, the Hudson on the other side, and right in front of us at about our 1 o'clock is Laguardia. So we're going to be passing right over our runway. Right about now, we're pretty much parallel with runway 4. Synthetic vision, of course, shows us just off to the left at the T there. That's the threshold for runway 4. So I'm going to reactivate vnav there and start descending towards 4,000 for Varig. Or rather 4,000 for JC, excuse me. We'll see where it stops. Of course, we just flew through Vader, and I didn't hit the vnav profile pass, so we're kind of catching up super quick here. Staying below 250 knots as best as possible. And that bridge just ahead of us in the center of the screen, of course, that's the Brooklyn Bridge. Further off in the distance is the Verrazano. And I'm sure we're all familiar with the Empire State Building, tallest building here in the foreground, as well as the Freedom Tower beyond, just near the New York Port Authority, and the Statue of Liberty there, standing strong and standing tall. Definitely gotta love it. So vnav again. And we're heading towards JC at 4. So that's news to me, but you get to see this happen in real time. I was not aware that I had to actually press the vnav profile button on every single leg for before the top of descent, but that's okay. We're learning as we go. So heading now to Nicole, 3,500. Impressive, impressive, impressive. Of course, Newark International is not very far ahead of us. Not very far at all. Teterboro is just over our right-hand shoulder. Maybe we'll get a better view of the Statue of Liberty here, I hope, huh? Here it is. Hello, hello. Very nice. So while I'm at it, just for precaution, I'm going to throw my heading select bug into a degree of 040 here. That way we can fly runway heading in the event of an emergency, and that way if we have an aborted takeoff, we would fly a aborted takeoff hold pattern, but we're not planning on missing this approach today. So I'm going to program this anyways, just to take the workload off if I have to fly a straight line on runway heading. assuming a missed approach. And I've gone ahead and brought the speed back just a little bit. So now that we know our V approach speeds are where they need to be, there's the parking brake. It kind of collides a little bit with the button press. Thrust levers, brakes, speed brake. Here are where we have that. Okay, after landing. So we're just going to fly the VREF speed on approach. Once we get to that stage, I'll go ahead and switch over to localizer mode and just manually fly the ILS once we're on straight and final. Of course, that's going to change our magenta compass rose here for the GPS track to green. And then we're also going to see an ILS right next to the left of our altimeter there, a little green ball that's going to ideally be right in the center of the 5 dots there. That means we are right on track vertically, and then as long as we're lined up with the green path on our compass rose in the center below, then we know we are accurate left and right. So that way you have your vertical data and your left and right data. Again, you have to be on 110.5 with a course of 044, but we already checked that approach plate earlier and programmed that in, so we should be all set up for that. Automatically making that left-hand turn. I'm going to come down here since we're below 10,000, and I'm going to go to my aircraft systems, and let's go ahead and actually head back. We'll do exterior lights. I'm going to turn our landing lights on. And we'll go back to the home page and the checklist. Okay. Actually, how about we just head back in case we need any of the other systems. Alright, so Varaz, next waypoint, as we can barely see with the rising sun where we are. So Varaz at 3,000, top of descent, coming right up. And there's that GPS turn. And the automated descent down to 3. And there's that Verrazano again. You can kind of see what we did there, looking off the nose, which is where we were. We came in from above, swooped straight down, almost parallel to the, or rather perpendicular to the city, made that left, flew that downwind, made the left-hand turns, and here we are essentially on final approach. Going to expect a call from ATC very shortly, telling us that we're cleared for landing. Start bringing the speed back. And let's go ahead and declutter the screen a little bit by bringing it in just a little bit closer so that you can see more of the track with me. Okay, so I do believe we have picked up the ILS, and we did. So the aircraft is going to fly that. Let's see if I can do approach glide slope. Localizer 1 at 110.5. And now that you can see, we have our green ball coming in. And we're almost straight on with our left and right track. You look out the window there, you can see the threshold to LaGuardia runway 4. And I'm hoping that air traffic control will call us and clear us soon, because I would like to get this clutter off of this screen. It's quite unsightly. We got a view on a view on a view out there, and this screen with the air traffic control is really just disgusting up the screen. It's alright. Now I'm basically just monitoring the throttle here. But we do not want the aircraft to have all the fun, so let's go ahead and remove the autopilot now and just start flying this ourselves.
Landing gear.
It's nice to fly in the visual flight rules, aka VFR. That way you can see these ILS gauges and this approach kind of working in real time, so that you don't have to guess about what's actually going on here.
0 Hotel Echo, wind 053.
There it is.
Cleared to land runway 4.
Cleared
Of
to
course,
land
that
runway 40
noise
Hotel
is
Echo.
our speed brake I deployed. Let's go ahead and remove that one last time, get it out of the way. Okay, it's showing we're a little bit right of track. Gear down. And now that we've let off enough speed, we can retract the speed brake. Of course, we're a little low. Three greens indicated. I'm going to throw in a notch of flaps. And try to trim the aircraft as best I can here. And still trimming out. Little high. Glide slope balls telling us we're a little high, but we are obviously on path here. I'm going to throw in another notch of flaps, continuing to trim out the plane for neutral flight. 4 whites, not good because that means a little high, but plenty of time to correct with plenty of speed. Approaching our V reference for approach on the knots indicator there on our primary gauge display. And now we're closer to on track. Green balls in the center, left and right pretty much lined up. And we're going to definitely make runway threshold. Pulling back the power. Let's get in the greaser. That's that greaser. Okay, flaps up. We'll deal with our after takeoff checklist briefly here. Once we come to a stop, I'm going to exit the runway left. Acknowledge.
Laguardia Airport information, Lima 1000 Zulu. Laguardia Airport information.
Of course, we don't want to listen to that all day.
0 Hotel Echo, contact ground on 121.7.
Ground handoff
121.7 for 0 Hotel Echo.
Clear of the active. Let's go over to 1217, although we're not going to do the rest of it the whole way because they're going to have us taxi to parking or gate. So let's just clean this up very briefly. We've landed. We've got everything the way it needs to be. we've got our flaps up. Let's come down here and we'll turn off our lights for landing so that we're as to not blind people. Put it back to normal. Okay, let's go ahead and quickly get this up. Trims green. Put it back in the green. And we're in green. Next checklist. And then shut down. Okay, so let's find a spot to park right now. Nice view of New York City from Laguardia here. Clear right and clear left. And looks like we have some unused paddock stands over here with jetway stairs. So let's go ahead and just taxi on over to this area. Little bit of bump. And we'll just pull into the first one available and then work on completing our last shutdown checklist and bringing the video to a close here at Laguardia. So I'm going to try to obviously upload this with as minimal edits as I possibly can in terms of how many cutscenes and view swaps we do. That way you can see it for exactly what it is in real time. I'll just turn left here and we'll make we'll turn right here, and then I'm gonna line myself up with this ground marshaller over there. Of course, wings clear left, wings clear right. Sweep this right hand corner. And then watch for his instruction. And he sees us. And he wants us a little left. And we'll stop. Okay, A-OK. Let's go ahead and throw the parking brake on. We'll remove our flight director. We'll turn the yaw damper off. Let's go ahead and remove this yoke. Let's run through this checklist here. Wheels chalked. Parking brakes. We're not going to do the chocks because we don't have them. Anti-ice off. External power as desired. Thrust levers to cut off. See that? Right hand, left hand. Oxygen supply control. Leave that. Parking brake. And then battery. Okay. So there you have it. LaGuardia as a destination. And hopefully that was an explanation and a well thought out plot for the navigational aids and the Navigraph, as well as some of the more detailed systems of the G3000 that are included with this simulated HJET. As always, I appreciate you joining the channel here and hopefully sticking through to the end of the video. And until the next video, of course, have a great day. Bye-bye.